Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
A 20-year-old Carlsbad man was detained earlier this week for an alleged connection to a school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Court records say the man was plotting a mass shooting with a teenager who killed 2 people and wounded 2 others. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen has the latest.
According to this filing, the local FBI office detained Alexander Pfaffendorf on Tuesday. It says he had been messaging with Samantha Rupnow, the 15-year-old who shot a teacher and 3 students at Abundant Life Christian School on Monday. The teacher and 1 student died. The filing says he admitted to FBI agents that he told Rupnow he would arm himself with explosives and a gun to target a government building. The filing did not specify which building he was targeting. Late Tuesday night, a judge approved a gun violence emergency protective order. Minutes after the approval, police saw the notice at Pfaffendorf's home in Carlsbad. He was ordered to give up his guns and ammunition within 48 hours. The Carlsbad Police Department filed the protective order. Lieutenant Katie Lynch from the La Mesa Police Department says officers only file these requests when there is a credible threat.
GVROs are just one tool that we can use to hopefully take firearms out of the possession of somebody who may be a threat until there can be more information. It can be looked at by a judge. Obviously, taking weapons is it's a serious thing, and so it's just one piece of the puzzle that comes into play that allows law enforcement to keep people safe.
The La Mesa Police Department is not a party to this case. The FBI's San Diego office says the Madison Police Department is taking the lead on this investigation and that they are not aware of any ongoing threats associated with this matter in Wisconsin or California. According to court documents, FBI agents saw the messages between Pfaffendorf and Rupnow. Those messages have not been released. A court hearing on the emergency protective order is scheduled for January 3rd. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Well, we have some cool air at night, but we have a very warm weather pattern during the day. Big temperature swings from morning to afternoon. We will be mainly clear out there tonight, and the offshore wind has been decreasing, so we're going to allow for a little more cloud cover at times near the coast. But a mild pattern with temperatures 6 to 12 degrees above average. That puts some areas near record highs over the next couple of days. We're going to talk about what's on the other side of this pre-holiday weekend coming up.
More than half of the 61 reported human cases of bird flu in the U.S. have been in California. That's according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco spoke to a local virologist to get a sense of what Governor Gavin Newsom's state of emergency means for the public.
If you were to ask me in 2019 what would be the next big viral pandemic, I would have said bird flu.
Davey Smith is chief of infectious disease at UC San Diego Health. He says virologists have been watching bird flu for years.
Right now we have a virus that is circulating in cows and in birds, but it's not circulating in humans. So what is that virus going to look like when it finally does get to us is the question.
Newsom's state of emergency means state agencies will work together to educate farm workers and employers about prevention and the use of protective gear. And they're planning bilingual outreach events to educate the public on how to stay safe.
It starts getting the infrastructure and resources in place for our public health agencies to start testing or to increase their testing, increase their education, increase the preparation for getting ready if bird flu were to erupt in a big way.
Scripps research scientists in La Jolla have been studying how the virus evolves. They published a study earlier this month where they identified a mutation that could make it easier for it to spread among humans.
So that gives us a little bit of a crystal ball of saying, hey, these are proteins that are really important that perhaps we need to include in our vaccine so that when the virus has evolved to infect us from person to person to person, this might be a really good strategy to block that.
Smith says besides direct contact with farm animals and wild birds, the virus can spread in raw milk, so avoid it and drink pasteurized milk instead.
I am not freaking out. I am still going to have my latte.
He says while the risk of bird flu remains low for the general public, Newsom's declaration will help public health departments be ready to sound the alarm.
Hopefully early enough and ready enough so that when we know what vaccine to give, that we can all get it and be protected as much as possible.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Well, you may have heard this one before. Congress has until midnight to pass a funding bill and avert a government shutdown. House lawmakers rejected a new plan backed by President-elect Donald Trump. It failed 174 to 235, with 38 Republicans voting against it. GOP lawmakers called for a 3-month extension of a government funding and a 2-year suspension of the debt limit. Now, this comes after a bipartisan proposal was scrapped yesterday at the request of the president-elect. A controversial provision in next year's defense budget will strip coverage for gender-affirming care for military family members under the age of 18. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer says the last-minute change has families scrambling.
To be honest, we don't know the exact numbers, but we do think it's at least thousands, if not tens of thousands of families who are going to be affected.
Democrat Sarah Jacobs is one of 2 San Diego representatives in the House to vote against the bill. The other was Democrat Juan Vargas. Jacobs sits on the House Armed Services Committee. She says the anti-trans language wasn't in the bill that came out of their committee.
I'm incredibly disappointed that House Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican leadership put in these culture war partisan issues into what has historically been a bipartisan bill.
The language bans gender-affirming care for recipients of TRICARE who are under 18. That's the children of service members and retirees. Kathy Molig is the founder and director of Trans Family Support Services, a San Diego-based nonprofit. She says the move is playing politics with kids' health.
It's a small amount of money. It makes no difference to the military budget, honestly, for the cost of it. This is just a clause that was put into the defense fund from the anti-trans movement to one more time try and erase trans individuals.
Her organization serves military families across the country. Now they're scrambling.
So yeah, people are afraid. We're also working with providers and talking to our doctors that we are in partnerships with of, okay, let's send us your military families so we can talk to them and figure out how are they going to continue this vital care for their children when their insurance will no longer cover it.
The provision echoes laws passed in 26 Republican-led states banning gender-affirming care for children and teenagers. Advocates of the laws claim the treatment is harmful, a position rejected by every major medical organization.
This has been approved care by the medical associations, by the pediatric associations, by the psychological associations as important medical care for gender dysphoria. And so when we withhold medical care from anybody, we are creating harm.
The National Defense Authorization Act, including the anti-trans provision, easily passed the Senate yesterday, with only 10 Democrats voting against it. The bill is considered must-pass legislation and moves on to President Joe Biden, who's expected to sign it. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
For people living in their cars, finding a safe space to park overnight can be a challenge, but more and more cities are providing safe parking sites. And KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says Oceanside is next.
Sunny Soto Briscoe has been advocating for a safe parking site in Oceanside since 2021.
Why don't we have a safe place for people to live in their cars? Like, that is a transitional period that before you're actually sleeping on the street, you feel safe within your vehicle or your RV, and we have no place to be safely at night.
She knows the need firsthand. Every Wednesday, her organization, Sunny Street Outreach, serves hot meals to people in need.
A lot of people stay up all night because of the parking restrictions that are from like these very dumb times, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So when you've already would have fallen asleep to when you would be waking up is when you have to play shadow games with parking enforcement.
North County has 2 safe parking sites, one in Encinitas and the other in Vista. In 2023, the Oceanside City Council began to look for a safe parking site, but no one applied to be the host.
We saw the city, looking for a space, struggling to find one. We thought that this could be a perfect space.
Max Disposti is the executive director and founder of the North County LGBTQ Resource Center. The organization recently purchased the property on Apple Street and raised their hand to host Oceanside's safe parking site.
For several years, we've been doing this work. So when we saw the opportunity to offer our expertise, so it's not just about being the landlord that are hosting the program, but really the collaboration so that we can actively support the people that are coming here sleeping at night.
Apple Street has been known as a hub for resources, and it will continue that history with the services from the North County LGBTQ Resource Center and now the Safe Parking Program. Dreams for Change will be the organization running the program.
It's going to look different for every household that comes through our program. But the main thing is ensuring, number one, that their initial basic needs are met and making sure that they are what we like to call housing ready. So they have their documents in order. They have proof of income, whatever that be, and we may work on them to increase income in whatever capacity we can by providing them, referrals to job training. We are lucky enough to also run a workforce program, so we have that direct connection.
This will be the first North County contract for Dreams for Change. They currently run the safe camping and parking sites in San Diego. The site will accommodate between 25 to 35 vehicles from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Applications open in February. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Now we have an update to a story that we've been following. San Diego planning commissioners voted 5-1 today to remove a footnote from city code that allows developers to build more densely in certain neighborhoods. In November, KPBS reported on how the footnote allowed planned developments in Emerald Hills and Encanto to have many more homes than the zoning map appeared to permit. A city staff report recommending repealing the footnote followed community outcry and an appeal from the Choice Valley community planning group. Members of that group say the footnote is discriminatory. A city spokesperson says state law prevents them from stopping already planned developments that rely on the footnote. The planning commissioner's recommendation now heads to the San Diego City Council for a final decision. Portable classrooms at a Ramona elementary school have needed to be replaced for decades. Some walls have water damage, and you can see the sky through one of the roofs. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says voters in Ramona had the chance to fund renovations in November, but they voted not to.
Several of the portables here on campus are 40-plus years old.
Chris Gunnett attended Ramona Elementary School as a kid. Now he's the principal. He remembers when one portable, now used as storage, was still a classroom.
Oh, we do have a gap here. As you'll see, the light is actually coming through the roof, but this is where the two portables are seamed together.
He says they have to move supplies away from the gap when it rains. Water has already seeped into the school's oldest building. Gunnett thinks it was built in the early 1900s.
You've got a lot of water damage, especially down below here. And the substructure here, you can see that it's soft, just some water damage over time.
In November, Ramona voters rejected a $26.7 million school bond measure. District leaders proposed using the funding to replace portable classrooms, improve career technical education facilities, and upgrade plumbing and fire alarm systems. School bond measures have been on the ballot in Ramona 7 times since 1986. They've never passed.
Usually the life of a portable is around 20 years. We've got portables that are past the 50-year mark.
The district is facing a $9 million structural deficit. Superintendent Brian Thurman says they spent $2 million this year and last year on roofs.
That was general fund dollars that could have been spent on all kinds of things, instruction, students, playground equipment, lots of things.
Local bonds are also key to accessing school construction funding from the state. This year, California voters approved Prop 2, replenishing the pot of money for school repairs. Thurman says the district was eligible for $31 million in matching grants from the state. He says it was an opportunity to bring state tax money back to Ramona's kids.
This pot is created with all Californians from the Oregon border down through San Ysidro, all of our tax dollars. And so the real message that I wanted to get across is that Ramona has never taken advantage of that.
The more school districts can raise through local bonds, the more state matching funds they can get. Some advocates argue that this system is unfair to districts with lower property values or where voters don't pass local bonds. John Affelt is a managing attorney with the San Francisco-based law firm Public Advocates. They've called the school facility funding system unconstitutional.
And the state's role should not be to replicate the wealth disparities with how they hand out the state dollars. The state's role should be to counter or redress local wealth disparities with state dollars.
Bonds get paid back by increasing local property taxes. Ramona's would have gone up by $59 per $100,000 of assessed property value.
As we saw at the national, state, and local levels, cost of living and inflation were still at the top of mind for voters.
Thad Kauser is a political science professor at UC San Diego. He says 3 things drive voter behavior on bonds.
One, how people are feeling about their pocketbook and whether they want to open it up to government overall. And that means that your bond can live or die, has nothing to do with your school district. The second thing is what people are thinking about that government function, right? Do they like the direction of education in California? And the third is what they're hearing from the groups that take positions for and against these bonds.
The Republican Party of San Diego County's voter guide said it opposed all ballot measures that increased taxes. 40% of voters in San Diego County's unincorporated areas are registered as Republicans. 30% are Democrats.
Voters rarely care about the size of either a bond or a tax increase, right? Either they believe in the cause and are willing to invest in it or not.
Back at Ramona Elementary School, Principal Chris Gunnett says the maintenance department works hard to keep its buildings functional. But newer buildings would have fewer emergency repairs and better prepare students for the future.
We have a lot of pride here, that is for sure. People choose to come here. I chose to come here as well and be a leader at this school. But it is that sense of pride when you do have a new school. Kids feel a little more connected.
Thurman says the district will continue to use the money it has to pay for increasingly costly repairs as they come up. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Members of the Teamsters union at Amazon are now on strike less than 1 week before Christmas. The strike was staged outside 7 facilities across the U.S., including this one in San Francisco. Ivan Rodriguez explains what kind of impact people can expect to see from this strike.
Bright and early at an Amazon facility in Queens, New York, the first location struck. An hour later, they were joined by workers in Illinois and then Georgia and California. For Amazon workers, their message is clear.
There is a narrative being pushed out by Amazon that we are the monsters and we are the problem, and we are not. How are we the problem when we have Amazon drivers at Fort Lauderdale that are delivering packages in a flood? How are we the problem when we have Amazon workers in California who were forced to work during a heat wave? We are not the problem because we're asking for what is owed.
The union pointed to Amazon's profits, which have soared, especially in recent years. Amazon reported a net income of $39.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2024. Their intention is to negotiate for better wages and working conditions. In a statement posted on X, Teamsters General President Sean O'Brien says, if your package is delayed during the holidays, you can blame Amazon's insatiable greed. We gave Amazon a clear deadline to come to the table and do right by our members. They ignored it.
I work for this billion-dollar company. I deserve better.
Since Amazon says it does not recognize the union, an open-ended strike seems unlikely. But by striking the week before Christmas, the Teamsters hope to apply maximum pressure to Amazon and perhaps convince some customers to shop somewhere else for last-minute gifts. I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
San Diego's oldest neighborhood has something brand new to show off tonight.
3, 2, 1.
This morning, the city's newest neighborhood sign was unveiled in Old Town. The sign says historic Old Town in San Diego, the birthplace of California. There was also a surprise for a special guest. The mother of modern Old Town, Diane Powers, who founded Bazaar del Mundo in Old Town, was honored with a street renaming. San Diego Avenue will now be known as Honorary Diane Powers Way. After the ceremony, she reflected on her many years as an Old Town business owner and booster.
We started in 1971 and we grew from there, and every year we're constantly upgrading, doing more things, changing, fine-tuning.
The Old Town Arch is the second neighborhood sign to be placed this year. In October, the Convoy District in Kearny Mesa got its own sign.
Well, I hope that you're doing well out there. We've had a pretty nice weather pattern, very warm, and that will continue into the weekend. We'll turn cooler early in the week, so as we look ahead to Christmas and Hanukkah and other big holidays coming up here, including Kwanzaa as well. It's going to be a big weather pattern change for us, and the moisture will be returning Christmas Eve locally. We might even see some rain showers roll in. And, you know, the atmosphere has been resistant to rain in Southern California, while central and northern parts of California have been doing just fine with rain and mountain snow. But the pattern's beginning to change. That'll be a little more favorable for rain for us next week. 46 for your low tonight. Intermittent clouds out there. And during the day, very warm in the interior, back up to 80 in Borrego Springs, 78 Ramona, Escondido 77, El Cajon 77. Pleasant weather. Morning clouds giving way to plenty of sunshine into the afternoon. Upper 60s in Chula Vista. It's a mild pattern through the weekend. Big ridge across the west with temperatures 6 to 12 degrees above historical averages. Let's take a look at that national travel forecast. Some of you will be waiting for family or friends to come to Southern California. Others are going to be departing and maybe heading back to where you initially came from, or visiting with friends or family elsewhere. Regardless how that shapes up, weather pattern is going to be much more active this weekend in the northwest as the ridge begins to buckle east, and rain and mountain snow will return to our friends to the north. And look at the cold across the Great Lakes, the northeast. Very cold out that way. Much colder than it had been, and we're going to be dry and cool and fairly uneventful across the south. So the coastal forecast, clouds return Sunday and low clouds with that moisture on Tuesday. It's possible we could see a few rain showers Christmas Eve night. Into the inland areas, low clouds return. Temperatures begin to drop just a bit. Into the mountains we go. You can see a good deal of sunshine. Clouds will increase, though, on Sunday. Temperatures begin to ramp downward, and we'll slide down to 47 for your high on Christmas Eve. And into the deserts we go. 80, partly sunny, pretty warm for this time of the year. More clouds increase, and then we're going to be seeing a bit of a cool down there into Tuesday with about an 8-degree drop from Friday's warmth to Christmas Eve's cool down. I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
The holidays are a delicious time of the year, especially at a little place in one East County mountain community where they've been making chocolates by hand for over a century. Ken Kramer takes us there for this sweet story about San Diego.
Along Old Highway 80, 60 miles east of San Diego, is the sweetest thing.
Can I get a handful of the licorice? Sure. Yeah, black and red, please.
A sweet stop for generations of travelers between San Diego and the Imperial Valley who want to take a little candy break.
I had people pulling in they were just driving by just to show their friends or family members that, hey, this is the candy cottage. We used to come here when we were really little. And
Dana Ecabellis owns Wisteria Candy Cottage in the small town of Boulevard, a little house built a century ago where candy has been made and sold since 1921.
People come in and tell me stories about my mom and about my grandmother. And just the other day, a fella came in and he started coming here in 1941.
They're both gone now, but so many San Diegans remember her mom and dad, Gordon and Lucilia Rankin, working every day here.
I love the smell. Chocolate's a part of my life.
Creating all kinds of treats, the air around this little shop perfumed with the sweet smell of chocolate confections.
People now look upon us as a tradition. We're not just a candy cottage in the mountains. We are a tradition.
Now their daughter Dana carries on that tradition, and to tell the truth, it's a lot of work. All these candies, they're all made here from scratch. Sometimes she drives down to San Diego for supplies. Just the other day in the checkout line, she got the question again, why are you buying all of this sugar?
And I said, well, I have a small candy chocolate factory in the mountains. And then they say, where? And then the lady behind me will say, that's not Wisteria, is it?
It most certainly is Wisteria, where today Dana and her son Joe made 3 batches of chocolate in the back kitchen, and now they're at work finishing up brittle, which will go right out on sale. Her favorite, a few trays of which have just come out fresh, are turtles, chocolate and nut. Customers snap them up.
And we probably make about 60 pounds of turtles a week. So it's a lot.
It's a busy place, Wisteria, out here so far away from everything. An odd combination of quaint and down to earth, up early in the morning over the kettle, hard work, making, shipping all over the world, and selling candy.
This is our seafoam.
And by the way, in case you're wondering, even though she makes it, works with it, sells it every day, yes, she does still very much like candy.
We eat candy every day, and we have to taste test it, make sure it tastes good.
I'm guessing there are worse jobs. Everybody who comes in is happy to see you.
Bye, Randy.
There are challenges, keeping the place cool on hot summer days, keeping up with orders from all around the country for Wisteria chocolate. There's all that. But keeping up their spirits seems to come naturally. She does work in a candy shop, after all, carrying on a family tradition. Dana thinks about that, too, every day she works here, about her mom and dad, the joy they found at this little place in the mountains, and about how much and for how long this little candy shop in Boulevard has been loved by those who come here.
It's more a part of you. It's a part of these people.
On Old Highway 80 in Boulevard for more than 90 years, something very sweet about San Diego.
And if you want to see more of Ken Kramer's stories about San Diego, then his half-hour show is here every Thursday night at 8 o'clock on KPBS. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.